Wait up, everyone. Welcome to kindergarten. This is our kindergarten roundup. We're going to be spending the next hour with everyone talking all about the exciting world of kindergarten. Next slide, please. Before we do, we want to acknowledge that we are on the unceded and traditional territory of Kamloops to Secwepemc within the Secwepemc Nation, and we are absolutely thrilled to be here with each and every one of you. Next slide, please. So the purpose of this evening is really to support you, the parents, in preparing your child for their very first year of school, which is such an exciting time. And we really want to set that stage for success. We are thrilled to have everybody here. We have about 270 people registered for this event, so they will be coming in throughout. We will be recording it because we realize that life gets really busy and unexpected things happen. So do not fear if you need to check out a little bit early, or if something comes up, or if you're having some technical difficulties, or you know somebody who really wanted to be here tonight but wasn't able to, you can let them know that if you go to the school district website, this will be posted on there in the next few days. It'll be there by Monday. We're going to give ourselves a little bit of time to get it all together. So it'll be there around Monday or Tuesday, and you'll be able to watch it there. We are in webinar mode. So what that means is you're going to be able to see our slides, and you're going to be able to see the person who is talking, which right now is me. You're not going to be able to see the participants, and you're not going to be able to see the other people talk unless they are talking. But what you can do is use our Q&A. So you don't need to worry about muting yourself. You don't need to worry about what's going on in your background. We can't see any of that. You can use the Q&A, which is if you hover on the bottom of your screen with your mouse, you will see a Q&A. You click on that, you can type in your question to us. If you think it's more of a direct question that would be best talked about one-on-one, please leave your email or contact information and we can get back to you. We will be monitoring that throughout the evening or throughout the hour, and we will be responding to as many of them as we can. We will not be verbally responding to any questions until our question and answer session. We may not be able to get to all the questions. So again, that is why it's really important to leave your contact information if you can. We will be showing a video. Now, we have spent lots of time trying to figure out this video, making sure it's going to work really well. But guess what? We are technology. And if one thing hasn't taught us anything is we just got to be really patient with technology. And if we do have some glitches, we will fix them on the back end, and we will post that again on the school district website, and you will be able to watch it there. So with that being said, if you can move on to the next slide. Let me introduce myself. My name is Maureen Dahl. I'm the Family Service Director with the Kamloops Community YMCA YWCA. Oversee a lot of the early years programs, specifically the Child Care Resource and Referral, Kamloops Early Years Center, Kelly program, which is our kind of the primary provider of the Parent Child Mother Goose programs, and the after school child care. This is my contact information and my email if you need to follow up with anything I am saying in the next few minutes. Really happy to do so. And again, you can always find us. We're at 150 Wood Street at the John Todd Center. Next slide. So I'm going to talk a little bit kind of about childcare and some of the things and our services, but really I want to start with the Ready Child equation. So what is that? We have the child, our children at the center. And then around it is those three pillars of family, school, and community. And as you can see, the relationship is very back and forth, all working together to meet the needs of the children, getting the children ready for school, which is really kind of getting the whole family ready for school, and building the capacity of children and families to provide the most optimal opportunity for your child's development. And we also want to make sure that we're doing everything we can prior to them getting into school so that when they do walk through those doors, they're walking through those doors confident and excited for what's going to be ahead for them for the next several years. Next slide, please. So one of the things to really think about is before and after school care. There are lots of places in Kamloops, but it is really hard to find after school care. Some schools do provide before and after schools care, but that's very limited please do not expect that your school will have that on site and be able to provide that. So if you don't already have childcare lined up, really encourage you to get a hold of us at 250-376-4771. We're open Monday to Friday, 8 to 4, to get a list of the school childcare that's available in your catchment area. This is also something that's very important. Not all childcare will be able to pick up from schools. Catchment is really important. So just be really mindful of that. Next slide. Their subsidy was now called the Affordable Child Care Benefit, and this is available to all families on a sliding scale that make up to $110,000. It's a simple process. The Ministry of Children and Family Development has really been working on the portal for this. And so now it's quite simple to do the application process online. You can take photos online, you can upload forms, but if you're having any issues with that, we're always happy to help out with that and to kind of help parents walk their way through that. If you don't know if you qualify for it or not, my suggestion is might as well try, because you never know, right? And you're not going to know unless you try. So if you have any questions about what the Affordable Child Benefit, please let us know, or you can even check it out yourself. The link is on the bottom there, www.gov.bc.ca, or just Google Affordable Child Care Benefit or ACCB and it will pop up. Next slide. One of the other things that we provide at the Early Years Center Childcare Resource and Referral is what's called an ASQ, Ages and Stages Questionnaire. You may have some questions about where your kiddo is at in their development. And we have some really simple questionnaires and kits that you can come do. You can do the questionnaire your own. It's really to be filled out by the parent, because the parent knows the child best. So you're more than welcome to come pick one up from us, or we can email it to you. And it just gives a really nice snapshot of where your kiddo is at right now. And then what we can do is have a conversation or send some information about what sort of activities you can be doing that can really sort of build up those skills to ensure that your children are kind of ready to go in all those different areas: speech and language, your motor, your social, emotional, your problem solving, things like that. So again, please feel free to get a hold of us for one of those, or email me and we can email that to you. It's just really, it's like a checklist. It's quite simple. Next slide. One thing that a lot of people don't realize is that we are open for drop-in. So again, as I said, we're located at 150 Wood Street, the old John Todd Elementary School building. And because it is an old elementary school, we have this amazing space. We have 3 different spaces, 2 play areas, and half of a full elementary school sized gym where kiddos can come around and be loud, and we get messy, and we have just a ton of fun. Parents need to stay with their children, and you do not need to reserve a spot. You can just come in at any time, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, from 9 to 11:30. Because we are in a city building and we are with the Y, the mandate is double vaccination. So we do check for those passports. We also do periodically, we do family kits that you can come and reserve, and we have this beautiful toy lending library, and you can come and check what we have there: puzzles, games, Play-Doh, all sorts of activities. All of that is free. Take these kits home, play with your little ones, bring them back, come get something else. Again, if you have any information or any questions, just get a hold of us. Again, 250-376-4771. Next slide, please. And before I pass it off to Grant, I just wanted to let everybody know here that Kamloops is really lucky. We do have an early years family navigator, and the purpose of this role is really to be kind of a one-stop referral for all families with children under the age of 5. And her name is Dee Dee Michaels, and she works with Interior Community Service. And I have her information there. And the reason why this is so great is it means that you don't need to know all of the services in Kamloops. You can call Dee Dee, tell her about your family situation, and her job is really to get you connected with the supports that you need. Next slide. So now I'm going to pass it over to Grant Riley, who's the Assistant Superintendent for Early Learning and Elementary Education. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot, Maureen. I really appreciate that. As Maureen said, my name is Grant Riley, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent for School District 73 in the area of early learning and elementary education. Really happy to be here with you tonight, even virtually. It's still great to connect. And definitely kindergarten is a very exciting time, and I appreciated how Maureen started her presentation, or our presentation, off in that way, because it definitely is. So I will try my best to answer some of your questions tonight in my presentation, and then we can answer more as we go. Next slide, please, Crystal. So this is the video that Maureen was talking about. It's a little snapshot about what Welcome to Kindergarten looks like, and we are hoping that it's going to play for us tonight.
All right, go play. Yes! Let's play soccer. Look at
with the same pumpkin. Colors to make green for your leaves. Oh, sorry, dear.
So success, that was awesome. So thanks so much, Crystal. So I just want to go through some of the registration processes that we have in our district. We have registration week for kindergarten upcoming next week, February 7th to 11th. This year, we're impacted a little bit by COVID, unfortunately. So we are having people pick up the registration package from the neighborhood school. Within the package, there'll be directions and instructions for what needs to be returned and what needs to be filled out. And then if we could have those returned forms once they're completed back to the school, sometime within the 7th to 11th, that would be perfect. Of course, if you have an older sibling in the school, you already know how this works, and the older sibling can bring the forms home and bring them back. And then if there are questions, what we'd like you to do is to contact the school directly. You can also book an appointment if need be, if you have particular questions. There is a catchment map found on the School District 73 website under kindergarten registration. It's right on the front facing page. If you slide down on the left, there's a little area for kindergarten registration. And if you follow that loop, you'll find a catchment map. So you can actually type in your address and then you can go from there. So that will be helpful information if you're trying to figure out what your neighborhood school is. Next slide, please, Crystal. So some of the documentation that you require, we need the child's birth certificate, also the BC services card or the care card. You need to have some kind of a proof of address in terms of that you're in the catchment area. So generally that's a hydro bill or a Fortis bill or something of that nature, just a copy of that. And then, of course, if there's any documentation concerning custody orders that we need to, as the school staff, follow, we need to make sure that those are provided for us as well so that we can be upholding those legal orders. Next slide, please, Crystal. So just in terms of catchment areas and transportation, so in kindergarten, all students have to register first in their catchment area school. And then we have a procedure called student transfers that we follow in our district. And it says that after March 1st, families can then request a transfer to a different school if they so choose. It's important to recognize that any transfers that are requested would not be finalized until probably the 2nd or 3rd week of September. So that's why it's really important to make sure that you register first in your catchment area school. And always transfers are determined based on if there is available space in schools where people are maybe trying to transfer to. There is transportation provided for students in some schools. It really is depending on the size of the catchment. So if there is a great distance to travel to the school, then bus transportation is provided. And if there isn't, if it's a neighborhood school that has a smaller catchment size, then there's no need to have a bus, so there wouldn't necessarily be bus transportation in those schools. Next slide, please, Crystal. So something that comes up often throughout elementary school is requesting teachers or specific classrooms. So it's really important to recognize that class placements are determined by school staff. Actually, the principal has the final say in the School Act on all classrooms and all student placements within classrooms. There are a number of factors that go into that, of course. Some of them include being able to focus the amount of kids in certain areas. So if we have students who have lots of support needs, we might want to split those around the classes a little bit to ensure that there's some equity in the classrooms. We also have to follow some guidelines in terms of contracts with our teacher union. So there are some pieces in place that staffs and principals have to manage, determining how they're going to put kids into classes. And it's really important to recognize that parents don't have the ability to choose their teacher or class. However, parents are able to inquire with their principal about how to request or how to share their preference for a classroom or school for their considerations. So that's an important piece to recognize. So as much as you can't necessarily say, I want my child in so-and-so's class, you can definitely contact the principal and ask about, my child would work really well with a teacher who is, really great at hands-on activities, or is really, calm and relaxed because my child's a little bit nervous. Like, those are things that you can definitely share with the principal, and the principals work really hard to make some of those considerations possible. Next slide, please. So just an important piece to recognize, it's such a large transition from home to school for little ones coming in. And I know one of the biggest things that parents really wonder about is, now my child is going to be in a different area for most of the day, and what does safety look like in schools. And I just want to let people know that safety is really the top priority for all the learners in our system, K through 12, but definitely with kindergarten students, we take a lot longer to really go over routines, to ensure that boundaries are really understood, and to ensure that we have lots of adults supporting the learning of those boundaries before we just have students kind of run off and go and play. So it really is quite planned out with our kindergarten folks, because we recognize that there's lots to learn coming into the new building. And those are definitely questions that I would encourage parents to ask their teachers when they first meet them in September, to ask what some of those learning opportunities are for safety rules, and what some of those boundary learning pieces are too. So thanks, Crystal. Really important part, and something that we would really encourage parents to do, is to investigate the Parent Advisory Council at their school. So each school has a PAC set up, and those PACs, really what their role is to be a bit of a sounding board for the school. They can provide feedback, but they also do a tremendous amount to support schools. They are recognized officially and legally as a collective voice of parents at the school. They work in collaboration with the principal. And they're forums so that the school community can discuss matters that really affect your school, but also how your children are being educated. So they really are a valuable, I would say, body or organization that, like I said, supports schools, but also enables parents a chance to ask some questions about what does learning look like in the school. And it is really important to recognize that we as schools really need to partner with parents. We really value your voice. And I think that anybody who's ever been in any early learning environment would recognize that parents are absolutely the first and best teachers of their children. And so we really value that information that you give to us. So we want to hear your voice as much as possible. Thanks, Crystal. So that's my section. I know there's some Q&A, but we'll get to those at the very end. I do want to turn it over to Marianne Vandepoel. So Marianne is our district early years coordinator, as you can see there. She knows everything early years curriculum, which now she's going to be mad at me that I said that, but she does. And I'm going to let her take over. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you so much, Grant. I appreciate. So I'm Marianne Vandepoel, district early years coordinator, and I work with the school district administrators, teachers, ECEs, and community as well. A big piece of my portfolio is to work with community and collaborate on all things early learning, and especially transitioning to kindergarten with families. But more importantly, in this presentation, I get to be the representative of that kindergarten teacher. So I've been a kindergarten teacher in School District 73 for 24 years, and I bring that expertise to these next slides. So when I do presentations and when I talk to families, it's usually about what are those kindergarten skills? What do kindergarten teachers really want to see before they start school? And I'm going to go through a list of things that I tell everybody, and I do rank these as important in the importance. So the very first one I tell families and parents and early childhood providers is we really, really want an enthusiasm towards learning. That is number one on our priority list. We want you to help your child explore and discover and encourage them to ask so many questions and give them the gift of struggling just a little bit, because we know when there's struggle, we're doing the most learning. Next. The next thing we really want you guys to focus on is solid oral language skills, and simply, honestly, that's about reading together. Reading develops 50% more vocabulary than just watching TV. Ask lots of open-ended questions. Give them words to describe things and feelings. Just talk about your day, what you're doing every day. Next. Our next importance is the ability to listen. And I know that's a tough one. I even find my husband still has trouble listening, so I understand. But honestly, if we can work towards listening, that means reading in a comfortable sitting area, playing games and rhymes with your beginning sounds, and then having your child retell those stories. Those are a great way to just showcase the listening. Next. Desire to be independent. Don't do for your child what they can do for themselves. And I know this is tough, especially in this world right now where we have these timelines and you want to just get things done so we can get out the door and on the way. If you can afford any time and opportunity for your children to be as independently as possible, that would be fantastic. Give them simple directions, 2 steps at a time, and encourage them every time they do something by themselves. Next, practice and work on the ability to play well with others. Super important. We know that conflict's going to happen. It's going to happen at school. It's going to happen on the playground. It's going to happen everywhere. It's how we handle that conflict, how we talk about our feelings, and how we work with others in those settings. Next. We also want to work on those strong fine motor skills, work those little fingers, work them. Encourage lots of strength building, coordination of those hands. And I know you're going to kill me, but honestly, get out the scissors, practice working with those scissors, and supervised, of course, but Play-Doh, beads, all those things that will get those fingers moving and shaking and building those muscles. Next. And if you've done all of those things, do you notice something I haven't mentioned, the academics yet? Because if you've done all of those things and you've played in all those areas, next, you have worked on your basic letter and number recognition. That is really important. All those other things before the basic letter and number recognition. Make it fun. Make it part of everyday life. No drilling. No massive workbooks, right? Talk about the letters and numbers around you in the world. Talk about the letters, in particular in their names. It's fantastic to go to the supermarket and find things that begin with the same letter as your name. And you'll have great success. Next slide. All right. The other piece as a kindergarten teacher, I would like to remind all parents is that we have gradual entry. When we get into kindergarten, your children will not be going to school on day 1 full time. You and your family are going to be contacted by the school to set up about a 15 to 20 minute one-on-one interview for the very first week. Now you'll get those letters of notice, sometimes in July, sometimes in August. Every school is kind of different, so I can't give you a full deadline, but you will get a letter of notice when that will be and what a gradual entry, which days your child will be coming slowly to school to build up to full time. Schools like to get it out early because we understand that you have childcare that you need to have in place. So for instance, you may be coming for your 10-minute, 15-minute, 20-minute interview, then coming for a half day morning, then coming for a half day afternoon, building up into that full day that will happen by the following Wednesday. So the first week of school for everybody is this gradual entry piece. By the second week on the Wednesday, your child should be in full time. And that's saying if all goes well, we allow for tons of more time if that's needed. If you can't make it in and your child is not ready to start full time by that Wednesday, it is okay. We will work with you on whatever that may look like. And I know you're going to say to me, well, wait a second, my child's probably ready on the very first day. Why can't they come the very first day full time? They've been to daycare, they've been to preschool, they've been to this, that, and the other. And it has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with the school being ready for your child, making sure we get to meet your child and have an individual contact with them in a slow, steady pace to make sure everything is great for them. But not only that, your children are learning all new rules, all new regulations, all new people, everything else. So it's a much nicer gradual step to coming and much more successful if we take that time to do it. Next slide. Now, Maureen had talked earlier about that ready child equation, right? And a piece of that is to ensure that the school is ready for you and your child. This is why we want to meet you well in advance of starting the school year. So all schools are going to start reaching out very shortly to host a big event at the school, and sometimes multiple events. They can be in person, they might be Zoom, video tours, packages, all to make you guys feel very welcome. And we call it Spark, Strong, Ready, and Prepared for Kindergarten. But also don't forget to check out our Strong, Prepared, and Ready for Kindergarten Facebook page for all parents. There's lots of useful information and links. And all the resources and materials you're going to get for free from your schools are going to be in there. All your goodie packages are going to include things like those scissors. So get out those scissors and practice. And as well, make sure if you don't already know, the school district has 7 Strong Starts. And the Strong Starts are parent participation early learning free program. But you need to contact those schools in order to be able to register to get in. So all information can be found on the school district website. All you need to do is Google Strong Start SD73 and it will come up and you will find the 7 schools that they belong to. Next. The school district knows it can't get to know you or your child nor support you and your family alone. And so what this school district values most is its partnerships with the community agencies. The resources in Kamloops Thompson area are incredible for the early years, and the school district partnerships with these agencies allows for much more seamless transition. Communication and relationships are real key. If you go to any one of these agencies you see listed here, you're going to find a plethora of programming and free resources for you to access, but not just for your child, for yourself as well, if that's needed. All right, next slide. So I'm going to introduce you now to Trudy Nielsen. She is our school district Aboriginal primary resource teacher, and she's going to elaborate on all the Indigenous programming and services that support all our learners in the school district.
Good evening, everybody. Hi. Hi, my name is Trudy Nielsen. I'm the district Aboriginal resource teacher. I have been in this role for about 5 years. And before that, I was a kindergarten teacher for 10 years. And before that, I was an Aboriginal education worker. So I've been in the district for just about 25 years myself. And welcome. Next slide. So it is actually a really good time to be an Indigenous student and family in the district. We have so many resources and supports to make sure that our children are successful. And I know it's a long ways off, but our goal is to get them to walk across that graduation stage. And we are actually seeing our increase of graduation rates go up and up and up every year. So it's just an amazing thing. What do we have to support our children? We have 6 Aboriginal family counselors that are assigned to different schools all the way around the district. We have 2 Aboriginal youth and family consultants. We have 38 Aboriginal education workers. And what's there at the bottom? I can't see. Anyways, next slide. So our Aboriginal education workers are in every school. They are there for academic support. They are there for social emotional support. They can assist you if you have specific needs or questions to support your children. They help with planning cultural events. And I can honestly say that they are just a phenomenal group of people that truly care about your children and will go out of their way to make sure that they are making contact with each and every student in the school that are under their requirements to meet and see every single week. And yeah, they're just a very caring group of people. And if you have any questions as a parent, please go in and talk to them, and they will do whatever they can to help you and your children to feel that sense of belonging, feel that sense of success. And yeah, they're just a great group of people. So they're there for you and they're there for your students or your children. Next slide. This was known as the Boys and Girls Group. They are now the Aboriginal Social Groups. So starting from grade 4 and up, we have boys, and girls are separate, but they're supported by the Aboriginal education workers and the family counselors, and they come together every week and they do everything from cultural activities to self-esteem building, decision making, critical thinking, all kinds of activities. once a week, and the students really love them, and it also gives them that real sense of belonging and just pride and yeah, that sense that they have a special group that is their very own, which is very supportive and helping them find success at the school. So that starts about grade 4. Next slide. And lots of cultural activities. So as I said, my job is actually to support teachers and staff across the district in implementing all the Indigenous curriculum. So what that means is basically every single subject area across the entire kindergarten to grade 12 curriculum has Aboriginal and Indigenous perspectives and worldviews in it somewhere. So a lot of teachers are still working on building that confidence to implement those perspectives. And my job is to help them do that and to help them build resources and implementing all of those perspectives into the curriculum. But I also get a lot of requests for knowledge keepers and people from the community who can help with cultural activities. And so our teachers across the district are really starting to embrace this, and you're going to see a lot of Indigenous cultural activities, history, literacy activities, everything across the subject areas, which is amazing for both Indigenous and non-Indigenous students. So yeah, you're going to see lots of that, which is pretty amazing. Lots of local, but also from sea to sea to sea, I say. So from the Pacific to the Atlantic to the North, they're learning about it all. Next slide, please. We do also have, it's been a little bit harder with COVID, our Aboriginal parent engagement activities, which take place throughout the year. And usually it is dinners and just evenings where families can come out and meet one another and yeah, just coming together. And I actually hosted an Aboriginal parent engagement activity last Thursday. And me and actually one of our staff is growing. So my colleague Charmaine Wilson, who is the on the land resource teacher, and we hosted a night on basically on traditional uses of plants and medicine making. So yeah, we have things like that going on throughout the year as well. Next slide. And that's about it for me. So if you have any questions, you can always email me as well. And I would love to introduce Pam Gurney, our inclusive education coordinator.
Thanks, Trudy. Thank you, Trudy. Good evening, everyone. My name is Pam Gurney, and I am the District Coordinator of Inclusive Education Services. And I work collaboratively with families, schools, district specialists, and community agencies to help support students with diverse abilities, to help them access the curriculum, and to assist in planning for meaningful inclusion. And if you would like to contact me, feel free to jot down my phone number and email. Next slide, please. So in School District 73, we recognize that children are diverse. They come from different backgrounds and cultures. And so recognizing this diversity, educators celebrate children's strengths and interests. And we also follow an inclusive approach where we welcome all students into classrooms. Kindergarten, as we know, is a wonderful time to socialize with other diverse children, play, inquire, problem solve, and learn the routines and expectations of school. Next slide. And so in preparation for kindergarten, School District 73 has what's called kindergarten planning meetings, which are held this March, April, and May. And the purpose of these meetings is to invite families who may have a child with an exceptionality and or who may need support transitioning into kindergarten. And this meeting is a time for families to share out their child's strengths, stretches, and strategies they know would be helpful for teachers to implement in the classroom. And so usually these meetings are held face-to-face, but this year they will be conducted virtually. And so if you have a child with an exceptionality or you know may have challenges transitioning to kindergarten, then I urge you to please complete a kindergarten planning meeting consent form. And these specific kindergarten consent forms can be obtained from early childhood centers, the Children's Therapy Family Resource Center, or any elementary school. And you may also contact me directly for the consent form. Next slide. Now, if your child has a diagnosis, it is important that you please share any assessments or medical reports with the school, or you can do so during the kindergarten planning meeting. And so students with a ministry designation will have what's called an individual education plan, otherwise known in SG 73 as an inclusive education plan. And so for simplicity, I'm going to abbreviate it as IEP. And an IEP is basically a plan that describes the goals, adaptations, strategies, and services that will be provided in the school to support your child. And so if your child has an IEP, then the school team will invite you to a meeting in September or October to collaborate upon the development of that IEP. And so you should have a copy of that IEP by about end of October. And also there will be a review of that IEP and a revision of that IEP during the school year. And at any time, you can also request for a school-based team meeting. Next slide, please. So who might be involved in an IEP meeting? Well, it will usually be the classroom teacher, the learning assistance resource teacher, and an administrator. And there may also be district specialists, such as a speech language pathologist, inclusion support teacher, or school psychologist. And as you can see from the list of district specialists, we have a wraparound team who serve as part of that relationship between support services being provided and the student's educational program. And above all, and you will notice in bold in the last bullet point, parents, guardians are required to collaborate on the development of the IEP. And so it's really important that you are involved and share out what you believe are realistic and attainable goals and objectives, as well as strategies for your child's development and learning. Next slide, please. So when you are invited to an IEP meeting, or if you are invited to an IEP meeting, there are a number of things parents can reflect upon and consider in preparation for the collaborative meeting. First, what do you want your child to learn? Maybe there are skills that have been noticed by community supports, and you would like those skills to also be learned in the classroom. Two, what are some short and long-term goals that you would like your child to achieve in kindergarten? And this is important because goals and objectives are elements in an IEP. And third, reflect upon your child's strengths and stretches. What are they good at? What are their interests? What are some things they find challenging? And sometimes we automatically think of what a child is capable of doing academically, such as knowing the alphabet and numbers, but also consider knowing your child's strengths and stretches in the social and emotional domain. And lastly, you might also want to reflect on how your child learns. Does your child learn better when music or movement is involved, or perhaps when there are various visuals presented? Perhaps your child learns better when frequent breaks are provided. You know your child best. So sharing strategies that you know would help your child in the classroom can make a world of difference for that transition to school. Next slide, please. So I've just provided you tips on how to meaningfully participate in an IEP meeting. And note that if it's an IEP that becomes a relevant plan for your child, note that I'd like to also leave you with 3 tips to become a meaningful advocate for your child. 1, have ongoing and open communication with the classroom teacher. The teacher welcomes open dialogue and is more than happy to support your child. 2, please attend and participate in meetings such as IEP meetings. And 3rd, if you have community supports or medical documents, please have copies of those documents and share them with your school team. Having everyone on the same page is just a fantastic way of collaborating, exchanging information, and supporting one person, your child. Next slide, please. So if you are already familiar with an inclusive education plan, so for example, you may already have a child in school who has an IEP, or you believe that your child who has a diagnosis will receive an IEP in their kindergarten year, then you may want to join an upcoming parent engagement session called Competency-Based IEPs. And competency-based IEPs are a new type of IEP which will be rolled out in the school district effective September 2022. I'll be discussing the similarities and differences with the current IEP that is being used in the school district and the upcoming competency-based IEP that will be rolled out in September. And more importantly, I will discuss the significant changes in how parents will be involved in the development of this competency-based IEP. And so if you have time, I highly recommend that you please join the Zoom session, which takes place on Monday, March 14th, starting at 6 p.m. And you can register for this parent engagement session by going to School District 73 website. So I hope you found this information helpful. I wish your child all the best in kindergarten and best wishes. Thanks, everyone.
All right, now we come to our question and answer period, and a lot of your questions, wow, you had some fantastic questions in those in the Q&A box, and most of them, if not all of them, have been individually answered to each other. But just for the sake of the recording, I know there's a few questions on there that I strongly believe that people will want to know in general. And the first one I am going to direct towards Grant Riley. If he could just speak to Ralph Bell. There seem to be a lot of questions around Ralph Bell. And so if you could just address, just briefly overview what that is going to look like for families coming into kindergarten.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Marianne. So as we know, there is nobody at Ralph Bell next week to number one, give out and also receive any kindergarten registration packages. So what we're asking folks to do is to go to either Juniper or Marion Shilling, depending on where you would have been prior to the catchment change. And then the secretaries at both of those buildings will be able to give you the registration package, but also then accept your completed packages back. And then they will be hanging on to that information and then providing that to the district. And then at the district level, we will use that to plan for September. Thanks, Marianne.
Fantastic. There are also a few questions about schools of choice and registration. Schools of choice have now closed on their registration process and they are working on their lottery. Grant, can you quickly answer though, even though that is closed and they're just placing all their placements, is it still worth for parents if they all of a sudden and they've missed that deadline to actually go back and try to register anyways, just in case?
Sure, yeah. So you can always register at a school of choice. However, you would be on a waiting list. So all our schools of choice presently do have a waiting list after the lottery. I'm not sure the length of each school's waiting list. That would be a conversation that you could have with the secretary or the principal at the school, but you're more than welcome to put your name on the wait list for sure.
Fantastic. Okay, just reading through a few more. Definitely about catchment area. So ensuring that you are registering in your catchment area, go to the school district website, and in the kindergarten section or kindergarten registration, there is a link right there. You put in your address and it will show you what your catchment area is. There was a question as well, though, about homeschooling. If they chose to homeschool, which would be their catchment school if they chose to homeschool? Because if you homeschool a child, you do need to register at a school legally. And so, Grant, can you relay it? Would their catchment school still be the one that is closest to their home address?
Yeah, fair question. I will just add to, in terms of determining your catchment, you can always phone the school board office, 250-374-0679. We routinely field questions about catchment, so we have no problem answering some of those questions. And then in terms of homeschooling, you don't necessarily have to register your child with the catchment school for a homeschooler. You just, as Marianne said, have to ensure that the child is registered or aligned to a school. So if it's not your catchment school, that's actually still okay. You can go to a different school. However, it makes most sense in most situations to go to your neighborhood school. So
reminder as well, registration forms for kindergarten for schools of choice are closed, but for kindergarten themselves, you cannot pick them up until starting next week. Don't go in tomorrow. Tomorrow's our beautiful, wonderful Pro D day. All teachers are educating themselves, and secretaries will not be ready for you. So don't go in until next week, please. Let me just take a peek here. There is still more questions. Ralph Bell is going to be a big one, I know, and talking about Spark and different things like that. We're trying to definitely work with administration and teachers and everything else to try and get families oriented to the new school as soon as we can. Currently, we are just taking in families to those other schools, just so we know numbers, so we see your faces, so we know who you are. Regardless of that, you will be welcomed. You will get your beautiful packages no matter what. And then we will start making arrangements, hopefully down the line, to get some more orientation to the actual school itself.
I can answer some of that a little bit, if it's okay, Marianne. So I've seen a couple of questions too around busing from Juniper to Ralph Bell. That will definitely be an option. So again, that comes to a catchment area being far enough away that requires a bus. So that is going to happen for folks. So there will be busing from Juniper to Ralph Bell. And in terms of Spark sessions for Ralph Bell, Marianne said it beautifully. We do plan to have the principal in place a little bit earlier than we would traditionally other schools when we do principal transfers, so that we can start working towards providing those sessions. It is a little bit uncertain just because we haven't made a final decision as to what those sessions will look like, but we do have a couple of options for how we're going to ensure that we connect with families. At this stage of the game with COVID, some of these sessions might be virtual anyway, but I'm really optimistic that we'll be in a different space by late spring. So I'm hoping not, but we'll definitely have a plan to ensure that we're connecting our kindies at Ralph Bell with principals and with Spark sessions. Thanks.
Pam, I'm going to direct this question to you. So there was a few questions about registration packages for kindergarten and a child and or children with exceptional needs, and they have submitted those forms with those packages. Was there anything else that you would require from parents if they know already that their child is coming in with some needs and some wants that you really want to highlight for them to make sure they hand right in with those registration packages?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So yes, there are, the kindergarten planning consent form is very different from the kindergarten registration form. So if you if you believe that, your child may have difficulty transitioning into kindergarten, or you already know that your child has a diagnosis, then please go ahead and complete what's called a kindergarten planning consent form. And on that form, you're going to notice that it's going to ask, for the basic information of your child. But more importantly, what it does is it asks for information of the community agencies and perhaps also specialists, contact information that you give me permission to contact. And basically what happens is once I receive that kindergarten planning consent form, then I proceed to call you, the parent, directly. And then I will have a chat with you about your child. And then from there, we proceed to what's called a kindergarten planning meeting. And during this kindergarten planning meeting, which again is going to be conducted via Zoom, it will be 30 minutes. And the purpose of that meeting is for you, the parent or guardian, and as well with your contracted professionals, share out information about your child to the school team, and I will be there as well. And it's basically to help your child transition as smoothly as possible into the kindergarten classroom, so that we have a better idea again of the strategies and tools that we need to have in place for day one. So I hope that helps. And again, those kindergarten planning meetings begin in March and they run all the way to May. Okay, so I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Pam. Kindergarten in School District 73 is full day kindergarten. Obviously, we adjust that if so needed. So when we say full day, that is what we want children to be at, and that means 8:30 to 2:30. And I say roundabout because our hours have slightly shifted start time and end times depending on which school you are at. So there was a question around what that day looks like, as well as drop off and pick up. I just really want to start with kindergarten safety is really important. You must have an adult or a responsible older child who you've made arrangements with the school with. Your child will not be released at the end of the day to anybody except for an adult or an older sibling that you have made arrangements with the school for. They are not allowed to walk home by themselves at all. It is really important to have somebody there at all times. Drop off as well. Your children are not supervised first thing in the morning. There are no monitors out on the school playgrounds. So ensuring that you have other adults around, whether that be your neighbor who's dropped off other children, or again, that older student, making sure that they are watched in the first thing in the morning is extremely important. Don't just drop them off and think they're going to be supervised out there. They will not. Bathroom breaks and all those kinds of things that are happening and transitioning during the day, we practice, we go as groups, we go with teams, we do all kinds of things to ensure the safety of your child, as well as kindergarten classrooms are strategically located in schools almost next to a bathroom, pretty close to a bathroom. So there is no worry. By the time we are ready to send your child to the bathroom all by themselves, we are pretty sure there will never be a problem. And if there are, we will always grab another adult to make sure that they are supervised at all times, for sure. Playground as well, recess and lunch. A lot of schools have team approach where they will wear pennies. Well, they'll have alternate times to do recess and lunch to gear these kids up for a huge amount of children on playgrounds. We practice all the time about which door is ours, how to line up, all those kinds of things. So don't worry, we will be watching your children at all times. I promise, I promise. And I'm just scrolling through some more questions. If anybody else sees anything.
I have one, Marianne, if it's okay. It's Dina's question in the chat. It's a really good question. Dina's wondering, do I need to register at more than one neighborhood school? Actually, we only want you to register at one neighborhood school. That's really important. So as much as you might want to prepare to transfer somewhere else, we can't make mistakes with having a miscount of our kindergarten students. So we want you to register at the one. And then you can definitely put a transfer request in after that March 1st date, but you wouldn't be registered at that school. You'd still be registered at your initial neighborhood school. So just registering at one school only, please. Thanks, Marianne.
And who is responsible for ensuring they're only released to that adults is the kindergarten teacher. The kindergarten teacher stands or the certified education assistant or somebody in that room literally stands at the door at the end of the day and will not release your child to anybody except who was on the approved list of persons to be able to take your child. That's why it's really important as well, if you have any legal documents that the school needs to know about, make sure they're in the file right away.
We also had a question come through for little ones who have a late birthday. Is there any home assessments you can do to see if your child is ready?
Well, I highly recommend the ASQ that Maureen had talked about at the beginning, but that is just an indicator. I just find children are all over the spectrum for ready for kindergarten. And honestly, you don't know until they come and they see what kindergarten is all about. Again, enthusiasm towards learning. If they're excited to come, if you're excited to send them, that's most important out of all of that. So don't think that because they have a late birthday that they're not ready to start kindergarten. Not only that, the government would really like all children to start kindergarten by the time they're turning 5 by December, and therefore monies and funding and daycare rates and everything else changes considerably. I just need you to take that into consideration as well, that if you choose not to put your child in, that's up to you. Although I always say try and see, and that connection to the teacher, that connection to the kids. Worst case is we make arrangements and adjustments to start another year or lessen the amount of time. So is there a one-stop shop assessment? Absolutely not. There isn't. What you can do is grab that ages and stages questionnaire. Again, you can Google it too, and it's online, the PDF of it, but to go into the Early Years Center and grab one, and you will just see some beautiful indicators of where a child should be at what point. Scrolling through a few more questions. I'm seeing I've answered a lot of great questions here.
I think there's one too about will a child who is on a school bus be supervised upon arrival? So the answer is yes. So schools have supervisors. Generally, they are certified education assistants who would be supervising bus arrivals in the morning. So there's always going to be someone who will be supervising your child when they are coming off of the bus and arriving at school.
There was some questions about talking about snacks and food at schools. All schools are peanut allergy aware schools, which means we would suggest and highly recommend to make sure that you watch for your nut allergies. That's the biggest one. Every classroom may be different. We may have one that is really allergic in that classroom, and there may be other things that need to be in place, and it's a case by case, but our school district itself is a nut aware school, so we do promote no nuts as much as possible, but it doesn't mean necessarily your classroom might be completely nut free.
We also had a question about how to join a pack.
So I can probably take that one, Marianne, if you like. So at the beginning of the year, PACs have a September meeting, and that information is shared out to the school community by the principal in newsletters and our weekly updates, depending on the format that the principal uses to communicate. And you are welcome to attend that very first PAC meeting. There is no need to sign up. You just get to go because you are a parent at the school, and then it's as easy as that. And then, of course, there is voting for executive positions, et cetera, once you've been with the PAC, and you can kind of learn a little bit about the format for that moving forward.
Can I just add that we also have a new Indigenous Family Voices PAC, district-wide PAC. So if you are a family who wants to get involved in that, please look us up. We're actually on Facebook as well. So.
And we may not have gotten to all of your questions. I think we hit most of them, but it is 7:30 and I'm recognizing the time. And I just want to thank everyone so much for participating in tonight. And again, it is recorded, so it will be posted online in many sites, on a few others. And if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out. All our contact information was included in the presentation. And I want to wish everyone a wonderful good night and stay safe. And thank you again so much to everyone on the panel tonight, and Crystal for being our back-end technology person.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.